What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate, joined by none other than TJ O'Sullivan and Hayden Bannick. And let's get right into this. TJ, let's start off with you. You were the one who wanted to have some reaction to what we saw and heard earlier today. Take us away, take us off here, and get it started.
I would like to say I'm a Coastal alum. I understand there's homers out there. There's you're always going to fight for your team. I understand. There is no way in hell that Coastal Carolina is the number 13 seed. There's no way around, especially who they have in front of them. That is I'll let Hayden take it. I have a bunch of numbers that I want to throw out there. I have a bunch of things I want to say. I'm really not prepared to do the intro. I'm prepared to just make a mockery out of what this selection committee did. Coastal Carolina got hosed.
Let me just say, I'm not shocked, but I'm disappointed because I know how the NCAA works.
I am shocked. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I am shocked because Coastal is baseball. That is their sport. They have the. Never mind. Go ahead.
So
you go right ahead.
You mentioned that, and it kind of throws me to one of my points. Oregon State, quote unquote, baseball program. This year, are they one of the best? Arguably, flirting with the 7 to 10 seed range, and obviously Oregon State got the nod. But you look at some of their numbers compared to Oregon, who, by the way, Oregon had a 4-game sweep of Oregon State, and Oregon State is the 8 seed, Oregon the 12. So that's kind of one of the points of the NCAA. But, being a bat boy for the University of Miami for many years, I know how the NCAA operates. So, not surprised, however, disappointed and frustrated for sure. Matter of fact, I was sitting at work, and I knew the 13th seed was coming up. And I was kind of shocked when Florida State went as whatever seed they went. But I was like, okay, I think the 9 maybe or the 10, something like that. But I was like, damn, okay, if Coastal's not the 8, where the heck are they going? And I'm sitting there, and I knew the 13th seed was coming up, and I'm kind of sitting back, kind of on my phone, because I knew it wasn't Coastal. And all I hear is, at the 13th seed in Conway, I said, huh? I was like, what other schools in Conway? Because I know good and well Coastal Carolina's not a 13th seed. But, it's unfortunate. They want, to favor the SEC. It's just what it's become. And, a lot of people that I posted some stuff that is kind of blown up on Twitter, or actually what you want to call it. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're just mad because that's your team and you got Florida. You don't want an SEC team. No, I want an SEC team. However, Florida, arguably and RPI-wise, is the second best 2 seed. Traditionally, the second best 2 seed goes to the 16 or 15 overall seed. And unfortunately, Coastal fell far enough down to where they're like, oh, we won't put Florida at the 15. We'll put them at, the 13. But here's my thing. Again, being a bat boy for the U for many years, you know how many times we had to go to Florida for a regional? Every single time. Every single time that Miami was not a host and Florida was, we went to Gainesville. Every single year. Didn't matter what our RPI was, what seed we were, did not matter. So why does Florida not go to Florida State? Why? Or why do they not go to Southern Miss or one of the California schools? But no, let's send them to a mid-major team because they, quote-unquote, will have the better chance of winning that regional. There's only one Power 4 team in that regional, which is Florida. And, oh, guess what? If they win, who are they paired with? Oh, another SEC team. So that they're guaranteed another team in Omaha. I looked at the bracket. I think there's a chance of 7 SEC teams in Omaha or something like that. Or it could be all 8. But a lot of the super regionals are favored to be SEC. I don't know if you guys watched baseball or not, but the SEC tournament was last weekend. I don't want to watch another one, in mid-June. But if you want me to go on my rant about, the Coastal, here's what I'm upset. I'm upset about multiple different things. Obviously, the being a 13 seed. However, I'm not mad at Clemson being higher in the seeding. What I'm mad about is Coastal being below Clemson. Coastal, the RPI of number 8. Clemson to 9. Non-conference RPI, Coastal 2 spots better at 5 and 7. Non-conference strength of schedule. So they always talk about who you play, and everything. Non-conference, Coastal 13 or strength of schedule. Clemson 94. Oh, head to head, Coastal swept Clemson. Clemson's 2 seeds higher.
In midweek games, by the way, they didn't see any of the starting rotation.
Well, which is funny because I've seen a couple people say that. Well, you're talking about midweeks. Yeah, you didn't see Coastal's best guy either. Like this is the same. This is talking about the depth of the team.
You saw the everyday lineup. You didn't see the weekend starters, and Coastal still swept them 2-0.
And what I like about it too is if you guys watched Florida any in the midweeks, I'm not terribly impressed with their depth. So if Florida can manage to lose a game, I think Coastal will have more depth than Florida. However, ECU, if they throw whatever the hell his name is, dude struck out 19 Chanticleers in Greenville. He's obviously going to start against Florida. If ECU's going all out for that one game, and that's really all ECU has. If ECU can manage to beat Florida, and Florida's going to beat Coastal probably at least once, there's more than likely going to be a Game 7 in Conway. More than likely. And I think if it comes down to it, I really think that Coastal has the better depth than Florida. Guess what? Coastal went on that 18-game win streak. And how many games did Coastal not have their center fielder and their shortstop, the 2 most important positions on the field? No Dean Mijos, no Ty Dooley, and still won. Coastal wasn't supposed to have the bats this year like they traditionally do in the past, so there's no pop-ups being homers in Springs Brooks. They still sounded the horn, which is scoring 7 runs or more, over 30 times this year. And they weren't even supposed to hit that well. So, and then you have one of the best pitchers in college baseball, Jacob Morrison, who started on Saturday in the Sun Belt tournament, which I think could lead up to him starting Saturday in the Conway Regional. I think we're going to go Fluky or Eichhoff on Friday against Fairfield, save Morrison for either Florida or ECU. So I really think if that pans out that way, I really like Coastal's chances in Conway. And honestly, sure, be the 13th seed. Go on and piss off Coastal. Sure. Last thing Florida wants, you got a former bat boy for the University of Miami and a Coastal alum hosting Florida in Conway. Hey, liquor sales went up this week in the greater Myrtle Beach area. Best believe it.
All right, TJ, jump on this train too, man. I know you had some stuff in the chamber as well.
There was a lot of things that Hayden said. I want to go through. If you want to pull that back up, I'm a little upset with them. I'm not upset that Coastal Carolina was not a top 8 national seed. I'm not upset about that at all. I would have been happy with 9 or even 10. 13 is ridiculous, especially when you look at who's ahead of them. So just on the screen right there, we kind of went through the numbers already. 48-11 overall, RPI of 8, non-conference RPI of 5, non-conference strength of schedule 13, road record 18-7, non-conference record 18-7. Just keep those in mind because we're going to compare those numbers, all of those being factors in that the committee takes into account when we're talking about the top 16 national seeds or the field in general. So we're going to take those into account. We're going to look at Oregon. Oregon finished 42-14 on the season. RPI of 16. Coastal has the nod there. Strength of schedule, non-conference is 8. Non-conference RPI is 3. Coastal has 5. That's Coastal again. Non-conference strength of schedule, 8. Coastal has 5. That goes to, or 13, excuse me. So we're going to give that one to Oregon, pardon me. Road record, 13-5. Coastal had as many wins on the road as they played road games. So Coastal gets the nod there. But it's the season finish for Oregon that troubles me. They finish first in the Big Ten. Great. But then they lose in the quarterfinals after squeaking by 12 seed Michigan State 4-2 in their first game. And then they get beat Nebraska, who was 500 in the Big Ten as well. So if we want to talk about momentum heading into the tournament, heading into the selection process, Coastal Carolina not only has that, but Oregon should be dropping. I personally believe that Oregon is not deserving of a seed higher than Coastal Carolina. Then you go to Clemson. We already talked about them. I don't think we have to talk about Clemson again with everything that we just went. We can compare all of those. Coastal has them in just about every stat on the screen right there. But the one thing I do want to bring up about Clemson, aside from the fact that Coastal Carolina swept the series with Clemson this year, at the end of the year, Clemson finished 5th in the ACC. They made a run to the ACC final and got killed by North Carolina 14-4. By the way, North Carolina is a team that Coastal Carolina brought to extra innings and lost by 1 run.
On the road.
On the
Chapel
road.
Hill,
You tell me which loss is better. You tell me which loss. Then go ahead. I'll let somebody else jump in before I continue.
Oh, no. Speaking of the ACC, because again, a lot of comments were, oh, you're just mad because Coastal got Florida. They got an SEC team, this, that, and the third. I'm not only mad about that. I'm mad about Georgia Tech. Hear me out. First ever ACC regular season champion to not host a regional since the field expanded in 1999. RPI, second best conference. And they go, oh, well, they didn't play anybody. They played the second best conference. And they played Clemson, Miami, Virginia. Here's my thing. They have 18 ACC teams. So it's hard to get a legit feel for playing everyone in your conference. They still won the most games in the ACC, the quote-unquote second best conference, and they're not hosting. I mean, I don't understand that one. I mean, sure, you can argue all day long that, oh, they played Notre Dame, by the way, bubble team. Stanford. Stanford won the series at Chapel Hill. Mind you, Stanford also has to travel 6,000 miles round trip every other weekend. Dude, that's and those players, they're not in the MLB. They're not used to that. They're used to traveling to Oregon, Arizona, USC, down the road. They're not used to traveling, 3 time zones away. Dude, when I travel to Utah, Texas, Hawaii, even those times, and I'm not even playing the game, it still takes a toll on my body. So, I mean, that's not a bad team. And guess what? Stanford's RPI is still in the 40s. They're not bad. So, to say that Georgia Tech didn't play anybody, kind of not a really good argument because, again, they're in the second best RPI conference. That means top to bottom, the ACC is the second best conference. Guess what? Coastal has a winning record against the ACC this year. They beat NC State. They beat Clemson. No. They might be 500. They might be 500 because of the 2 Wake Forest games and UNC. Yeah, so they're 500. But still, 500 midweek against the RPI, second best ACC. But when you look at the Wake Forest games too, because I'm one of those diehard fans, TJ is too. If you look at who Coastal threw in those Wake Forest games, and you're a big-time Coastal fan, no offense to these players, but you're looking at some of the names and you're going, who? It was kind of a throw every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there against Wake Forest both times. And again, not to discredit Wake Forest is a good team. The ACC, it's hard to find a bad ACC team. Boston College, a 14 seed, put on a run in the ACC tournament, had UNC scoreless in the 7th, 2-0. And that's with UNC throwing Knapp, their best guy. And Boston College held them 2-0 in the 7th and then finally imploded. But still, I'm mad that, Oregon is below Oregon State. I'm mad that Georgia Tech isn't a host. I'm mad that Coastal isn't top 10. Just like TJ said, I'm not mad that they're not a top 8 because I can understand the argument of why they could be a 9 or 10. I could understand. I could see it.
I could see them getting held out just for the Wake Forest series. Like I could see that being the factor because they didn't look good against Wake Forest.
No, and they still won the most games in baseball.
Yeah. I think here's the thing that Ben, and I'll go back to this graphic at this point. He says it's probably because Coastal didn't go up against a lot of SEC schools in non-conference games. Look at the non-conference RPI and the non-conference strength of schedule. And then look at the win total. I don't understand. You don't have to play SEC teams. And trust me, it's not because Coastal didn't try and schedule them. Trust me, the top teams in the Sun Belt in baseball have just as much trouble scheduling good teams in baseball as the football teams do, where they're like, I'm not sure we really want to play you. Maybe we'll give you a midweek. We don't want a series at the beginning of the season, right? Coastal did get lucky to go down to Jacksonville and get a couple of teams all at the same time in kind of that preseason tournament type thing. What was it? They had Bama, NC State, and who else was down there?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. So, I mean, that's a good way to kick it off.
Went 2-3 on the weekend. Didn't look great against Alabama, but once again, it's February. Not saying that doesn't matter, but they went 2-3 on the weekend and beat NC State, who is a tournament team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we still have to get to Southern Miss as well, even though, again, but we do have two teams in the tournament. For those that are living under a rock and haven't seen all this, Coastal and Southern Miss are in the tournament. But the team that got hosed the absolute most, the Troy Trojans, here's where I'm going to pick up the speed here, a 39-21 overall record, an RPI of 47. That is kind of on the cusp there. Okay, I'll give you that much. The road record of 17-10, neutral site just 2-2. But, you don't see a lot of great records on neutral sites typically. Their home record, 20-9. The conference record, 18-12. So let's put this up against one of the teams that just snuck into the tournament in Arizona State. 49 RPI. So you got 49 versus 47. Kind of a wash there, okay? 26-9 at home versus Troy's 20-9 at home. Yep, pretty close there. 18-12 record in conference, just like Troy had. So a total wash. Away, Arizona State, 9-11, losing record overall. Troy, 17-10 on the road. The neutral site for Arizona State, 0-2. The streak, here's the biggest aspect. I have more notes to go off of after this, but the biggest aspect is, well, Troy struggled down the stretch. I'm not gonna argue that, right? There is factual things that back that up. They struggled to win a game against Southern Miss, competitive in at least two of those, but they did struggle to win a game there. So they did go out with being swept on the last weekend of the season, unfortunately. Then they go into the tournament, lose that first game to ODU. They do rebound, get 2 wins before ultimately falling to Southern Miss yet again. So all these losses at the end of the year are to one team that's really damn good. So,
by the way, they're a regional host.
Right, exactly. This isn't just some run-of-the-mill team, maybe a fringe top 25
team. Not a middle-of-the-pack, bottom-of-the-pack Sun Belt team. It is the number 16 team in the nation as per the committee.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're going to use that logic to put Southern Miss in as a top 16 seed, you need to also take that same line of thinking and apply it to Troy, because I my heart breaks for Troy. I think my tweet went kind of viral with Troy fans when I said that Troy deserves a bid. Another team that you can look at is Kentucky, who went 29-24 on the season, but they're an SEC team, so they get in. I don't know. Troy deserved to get in. I can't believe that a 39-win team with the RPI that they had on the cusp, on the bubble. They've got 39 wins. They took care of business. They make it to the semis in a league tournament where the top 2 teams in the league are regional hosts. They made it to the semis. They did all that they could do, and they're getting held out of the tournament. Don't get that.
Hey, and who was Coastal Carolina's only series loss?
That's another one.
Troy.
Yep. Troy took a series from Coastal, played Southern Miss competitive. Oh, but Troy struggled down the stretch. Hey, you know who else? You know who else struggled down the stretch? That would be your 11 national seed, Clemson. Struggled down the stretch.
Well, here's the kicker, right?
Oh, but they made a run in the tournament, Hayden. They made a run in the tournament and they got killed in the final game.
Yeah. So and Troy made a run in the tournament too. I mean, it's comparable.
Yeah. So this is where my thing is with the struggle down the stretch. Again, that's factual. There is no debating that they struggled down the stretch. But if you're comparing Arizona State, who just gets into the field, with, as we saw, everything else really, really comparable across the board, then they had to be hot coming into the end of the year, right? No, they lost 4 straight games. They also got swept their last regular season series against Oklahoma State, who wasn't a ranked team. Now, the Oklahoma State makes it into the tournament, so they're a good team. But you're going to argue with me that a ranked team beating the Trojans 3 straight times and being their kryptonite, right? Because it's 4 now after their loss in the Sun Belt tournament as well. But you can't tell me, you can't honestly look at Arizona State's record and everything else that they have stacked up here and tell me that Troy isn't better right there at the very end with what they've been able to do. I mean, you could also look at, to note, Arizona State did have 4 sweeps. How many of those sweeps were against really good quality opponents, though? I mean, so again, it's not, I mean, I can see a couple things, but they're not crystal clear as far as giving them the nod over Troy for any reason that I can see. I mean, again, you can make arguments, right? I mean, you could put against 16 games versus teams in the field. Arizona State went 6-10 overall. Troy against 14 games against teams in the field went 5-9. So again, there's not really much of a discrepancy, right? They both had losing records. They both had the same winning percentage against teams within the field. But you're going to say, well, Troy, they didn't get it done down the stretch. They went farther in their conference tournament than Arizona State did. And they lost just as many games down the stretch. In fact, they lost 4 straight. Troy didn't even lose 4 straight, right? So, I mean, I don't know. They really got screwed. I'm shocked by that one. That's the biggest shock to me.
You want to talk about a bad stretch too? Let's look at the 2 seed in Conway, Florida. They went 1-11 in their first 4 SEC series. But they beat the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country, Texas and Arkansas. Okay, well, you look at 6 of Florida's SEC wins against Missouri and South Carolina. So yes, they finished 15-15 in the SEC. They lost to Ole Miss in the tournament fairly quickly. But I mean, honestly, people think that I'm mad that we got Florida. I'm kind of not. Like, when you look at this, I mean, I do think that Florida should have got sent to like a higher seed. However, dude, I'm kind of liking the chances. I think that a lot of people, and some stuff I commented on and posted, they said that Florida had a cakewalk of a regional, that the Conway regional was going to be a breeze for Florida. It's not. It's not. Their noon game on Friday is not going to be a breeze. Not going to be a breeze at all, because they're going to throw Norby. ECU is. Dude struck out, 109 batters. 19 were Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. So I'm really glad that ECU got a really tough draw for their first game, because I was talking with some big-time boosters at ECU that said that they were going to save Norby to play Coastal. That mindset has changed since they got Florida in game 1. So, I mean, I'm not mad with the Gators in our regional. I am kind of upset that I think Florida should have went somewhere else, but give me Florida. I mean, it's gonna be exciting to see one of my big time rivals in Conway.
Call me crazy, but I still see a path. Like, this doesn't necessarily change what Coastal, like there's chances for Omaha for me. It just pisses me off that they're not going to host a super regional. Like, that's the biggest thing for me, is the fact that they're not hosting a super regional. They deserved the top 8. I'm not upset about the fact that they're not a top 8. I'm upset about the fact that they're not going to host a regional. But this path gets tougher. And Coastal, I still see a path. I still see a path. Florida's going to throw their ace against ECU to try and get that first game, because in that regional game, the first game's the most important. If you lose that first game, you have to play 5. So the first game, incredibly important. Coastal has the luxury of being able to throw either Eichhoff or Flukie in that first game against Fairfield, which they're 20 minutes down the road from me. They're a great baseball program over here. They're not Coastal Carolina. I'm sorry, they're not. So I think that you could throw Luke Jones in that game and have a pretty good shot of winning that game. It's the second game against potentially Florida that you're going to get Morrison. And I don't think that Florida And Florida fans, hear me out. You guys are not going to have the same level of success that you've had all season against Morrison. You're just not. Morrison paints the corners. He's got a big breaking ball. He throws 95, 97 on the gun. He's the real deal. He is the big unit from the right side. You are going to have your hands full. I still think Coastal has a path here.
And Coastal is accustomed to hitting in Springbrook Stadium. This year, they're not really hitting a lot of bombs. Florida, when you look at batters coming into this stadium, they get excited and they lick their chops, seeing how small the walls are here. I mean, a lot of places, they say a routine pop-up is a home run in Conway. Okay, might be true. Same thing, same exact thing, dude. When I was a bat boy for Miami, we would go play at Wake Forest, and Wake Forest has an extremely small park, just like in Conway, smaller actually. But Miami, every time that we would go up there, and mind you, I bat boyed for some MLB All Stars, but these dudes saw how small that ballpark was, and they tried to lift everything. They tried to overpower everything, trying to kill it, and we would be held to 0, 1, 2 runs in Winston-Salem, and we would score maybe 5 runs all weekend because they just had that mindset of playing in a small ballpark that they're going to hit everything out. So it'd be kind of nice to see what Florida batters take approach to in Conway with it being a smaller ballpark.
Yeah, so let's talk about the team we haven't talked too much about just yet. Southern Miss. Now, they did not win the conference championship, as we know. Coastal did get that. Great game, honestly, from an outsider who wasn't cheering for either team. That was just fun to watch. It had just enough of everything. Yeah, it wasn't just all offense. It wasn't a pitching duel. It was kind of somewhere in between, but there was some really great defensive plays. There were some really big hits. I mean, it was phenomenal. And it was everything. I think we put this out as a tweet. Like, it was everything that we kind of wanted. We wanted both teams to look pretty good without either team really looking dominant. Obviously, if you're a fan of one of those two teams, it's a little different. But from the outside perspective, we got what we wanted as a conference. Everybody looked good, and one team won in the end. That's about all we could ask for as far as that is concerned. Well, whatever. Let's just go into who they've got. Now, they are, again, also a regional host, playing host to Columbia, Alabama, and the Miami Hurricanes. Hayden, I'm sure you looked into this one a little bit because of that, right?
Absolutely. So you look at the Southern Miss Regional, and yes, they are the 16 site. So that typically means that you get the best 2 seed. They do. They got the RPI wise, Alabama was the highest one in the 2 seeds. Florida the second one. Columbia. Not a lot of people know this. Columbia RPI wise, if I looked at them all correctly, they have the number 1 RPI of all the 4 seeds. So you got the best 4 seed, quote unquote. You got the best 2 seed, quote unquote. And Miami, they're not horrible. I mean, Miami has pitching. Miami has pitching. They're going to throw Hugas against Bama. And if Miami can score 3 to 5 runs, I really like their chances to beat Alabama. But Miami does not score a lot of runs this year. They get in the pitching duels, and if they're getting out hit, they're losing. So, I mean, I hate to say it as a Miami fan, Southern Miss, if they get Miami in game 2, I kind of like Southern Miss's chances here, honestly. I think because Southern Miss can hit. Southern Miss got some good pitching too, but Miami, man, we haven't been hitting. I mean, Covey is good, but Southern Miss, they got a really good draw getting Miami, but luckily for them, Miami's going to use all their best pitching against Alabama. And unfortunately, that's all Miami really has is, a couple guys here and there. And they got that boy Will Smith, Coastal Carolina transfer, coming out the bullpen. That dude brings some electricity when he comes out there. So I would like to see Will Smith come in and maybe get the save or be the setup guy against Bama to put Miami into the 1-0 matchup, because that'd be huge for them. But I mean, I really like Southern Miss's chances here. I think even though that the quote unquote they got a really tough draw with Columbia and Bama. I've seen Bama. I mean, Coastal played with Bama. Coastal, if I remember correctly, they walked a ton of guys against Alabama. I think Coastal out hit Bama, but when we give up, I think it was 10 plus free passes against Bama, it's kind of hard to win games like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
12
Troy
walks.
went down to Bama 3-1. And Bama, whenever Bama beats anybody in the Sun Belt, it's a game, right? I mean, I think did they play? It might have been Arkansas that played Arkansas State, and that was a hell of a game too. That went down to the wire, very close. But yeah, I don't know. Chad says their situational hitting is atrocious. Unless you're down a couple runs in the bottom of the ninth and Nick Monastery is up to bat, and then he usually takes care of business pretty well. There's a reason they call him Big Game Nick there. Yeah, Buzzard Balls to the top is starting. We also want to thank Jason Bailey and Gray Bay for jumping on to preview our championship game. We had a lot of fun doing that. We had two guys down there at the stadium. Well, I guess they weren't technically at the stadium just yet, at least in Jason's term. I think Gray was just outside the stadium. TJ, is that correct?
I think he was either just outside the stadium or just outside the hotel.
Okay. Well, they were real close to each other then. They could have just been on the same video.
Could have.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, to preview that game, we had some insight that Jason Bailey gave us about who Southern Miss was going to throw.
Yeah, we unofficially confirmed Sundstrom was starting. That was cool.
He did, yeah. And then TJ, you kind of already knew or had a good feeling of who Coastal was going to start. Gray had the same thought. I'm sure Hayden also either already knew or had a feeling as well with what has been transpiring throughout the season. But yeah, definitely shout out to those two guys for making that championship preview what it was. Had a really good time doing that. But yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing was that we saw was Southern Miss fans saying, man, we got to host, but then they just loaded our regional. So, hey, the good news is you're playing at the Pete, and I know a lot of us expect you to make it out of it. I would love to see somehow, some way, at least one of the two teams between Southern and Coastal be able to host a super regional because of what happens in other ones. As Destiny had said earlier, that is still a chance. It's not the greatest, of course, but you take care of business, and that stuff will shake itself out in the end. But TJ, I didn't know if you had any notes here as well on Southern Miss real quick, or maybe just who they get to match up against or what you expect out of that at all.
No, I mean, I like just about any matchup that Southern Miss would have gotten just by the way that they're able to string hits together. There's really no weaknesses in that lineup. They're a great baseball team. We saw it last weekend. What I will say is I am very happy in the same sense that I am very upset that Coastal is the number 13 seed. I am very happy that the committee kept the Hattiesburg Regional in. To me, they deserved it even with the loss. I thought that it was going to be anywhere from 14 to 16 if it happened. So I am glad that it happened. It might not be the perfect scenario, potential super with Vanderbilt, which is not what anybody wants to hear. But I am happy for Southern Miss. And what you guys have to do down in Hattiesburg is what you've been doing all season long, because it gets loud down there. And you saw what happened in Montgomery. It was basically Hattiesburg light. That's what it was. So just show out, show off your passion and get, as I'll say this endearingly, show off how obnoxious you can be to the opposing starting pitcher, because you did it to us, Coastal Carolina, and I think that you guys have a really good shot at this.
Nice. I got one more thing. I'm going to go to Hayden after I ask this question. So we had two amazing teams come in on some of the longest runs in the country, right? We know Northeastern's got 26 game streak or whatever the hell they're doing, which is crazy, and first class stuff. Great job for them. But we had two of the other hottest teams in the country playing each other in the conference championship. Couldn't have gotten any better. However, let's just touch back on this again. And for Southern Miss to still work out for the most part, again, you can kind of argue that maybe they got some tougher teams in their regional. But did you not totally devalue the championship game by doing what you've done to Coastal when you do put the Oregon State team in ahead of them, who doesn't even have a conference to play a championship game in? So you're telling might as well forfeit the game, guys, because it means nothing, right? And that's not true. We know it's not true. But, I mean, that committee's shown us that, right? I mean, this is the same thing that we say in football as well. It seems like it's all the committee stuff lining the pockets with ACC and SEC money here, because why else does the conference championship not matter more to get you onto that pedestal of getting into the top 8 when some of these other teams didn't play in their conference championship game?
Oh,
Hayden,
100%, 100%. And then you look at Oregon State too. They're not in a conference, so they can kind of cherry pick of who they want to play for a weekend series. So yes, their non-conference RPI is 4, which obviously means their RPI is going to be high too, because all their games are non-conference games. Speaking of non-conference games, before I talk about some Sunbelt stuff here, you look at the Nashville regional here. You know who Tennessee's lone non-conference loss was to? That'd be the 3 seed, the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. I think they're a sneaky, dangerous 3 seed, and I think they arguably could have made a case to be a 2 seed. Honestly, I think they are, and the SoCon is a pretty decent conference as well. So I think there's a chance that not only Louisville knocks off Vandy, I think if ETSU can get past Louisville, there's a chance ETSU might do an upset on Saturday night. But then you look down in Auburn too. TJ's upset that Coastal's not guaranteed to host a Super Regional. I am as well. I still think there's a good chance that a Super Regional comes to Conway. I think NC State has a decent chance of beating Auburn. Yes, no, Auburn is top 5 in almost every category there is when it comes to all the metrics and all the numbers and all that good stuff. That's great. But
They're a
NC
tough
State,
draw.
yeah, tough draw. But I mean, State's not terrible. I think, numbers wise, they are one of the lower end 2 seeds. And as a matter of fact, if I looked at all the 2 seeds correctly, Auburn, an SEC team, is hosting the quote unquote worst 2 seed in NC State. You look at Coastal, a Sunbelt team, hosting the second best 2 seed, which is an SEC team, which then could potentially lead what the NCAA wants is an SEC matchup for a Super Regional. And like I said before, America doesn't want to see another SEC tournament.
Nope.
So I don't know. I mean, I get, like you said, the money lines, everything. And you look at Southern Miss hosting. I think that's why Southern Miss could be another reason why they are hosting over Georgia Tech. I want to say that the Pete holds a decent bit more than Atlanta. I know Georgia Tech finally renovated their stadium and all that good stuff. Could have been another deciding factor. Southern Miss obviously had a higher RPI and everything than Georgia Tech. So I'm not mad that Southern Miss got in over Georgia Tech. I'm mad that maybe some other teams got in over Georgia Tech. Tennessee, when's the last time Tennessee won a series?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't have that.
No,
Yeah,
wasn't prepared for that one.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's been a while since Tennessee won a series. And
Who won the ACC tournament in 1972?
Yeah,
Don't play with Hayden. He probably knows that one.
Do you?
1972. No, I can't say. Can't say I remember that one off the top of my head.
Just to touch back on Oregon State for a second, Hayden, while you're pulling up what you're pulling up. Just I find it funny because you talk about cherry picking a schedule and choosing who you want. My grandfather, 2 uncles, proud Notre Dame alumni, and every single football season, we get to hear the same thing from the national media, and we get to hear everything from the committee on whether or not they're going to hold certain things for Notre Dame accountable as, oh, they don't play in a conference championship. Oh, they only have 12 games. Oh, they get to choose who they play every single week. But now Oregon State is given an 8 seed for doing the same thing. And I feel for Oregon State because the Pac-12 just disintegrated. Okay. It was out of their control. Yeah. I feel for Oregon State, and I am well aware that Oregon State is a phenomenal baseball program, but they just did the same thing. Where are all those people? Where are all those independent haters? Like, what's the difference here? That's what I don't get. They didn't even play in a conference tournament. So all of these teams that are like, oh, we have to see how things shake out. and who goes up, and the reason Ole Miss is ahead of Coastal Carolina, it's not the baseball. When you look at all of the different numbers that we've been talking about, it's the fact that they made it to the finals against Vanderbilt. That's why Ole Miss moved up the way that they did. So I don't know. I think it's a little pick and choose who we want to use that argument against, but credit to Oregon State. Do I think they're the number 8 seed? Probably not. Do I think Coastal is? I think they have the better argument.
That's the thing, right? You get rewarding Ole Miss for moving up to the final but not winning it. But then, you've got two teams that are the hottest in the nation, two of the hottest in the nation, who play each other, and really neither really. Well, I mean, I guess you could say Southern Miss was rewarded with a regional host, but
you award Oregon with a loss in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, you essentially they're so close in the overall seeding there that you didn't really reward one over the other. You slotted both where you thought the mid-major team should be, which, just continues
to me.
To chat.
The reason that I said that Southern Miss deserved a regional host, and I think that they 100% still do. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the reason I thought that they did was they played a Coastal Carolina team really close in the Sun Belt Conference Championship, and they were, before that game, they were in the conversation for a top 8 seed.
Yep.
So if they move down to 13, then it becomes, how do you justify Southern Miss hosting? Because that's like their calling card right there. So I don't know. I think that Southern Miss deserves a regional. I just don't understand how you can give Southern Miss a regional because they earned it, but then screw Coastal with the same during the same game like that. I don't get that. Is that what I'm saying making sense? Is that, I don't get that.
Well,
Southern Miss deserves a regional. I just want to make that clear for all the Southern Miss people in here right now. They deserve a regional, but that logic doesn't make sense.
Go ahead, Hayden.
Right. I mean, I found it. Tennessee has lost 5 straight series, one of which was to Kentucky at home. So don't give me that bullcrap of, well, they're playing Texas, Arkansas, yada, yada. Okay, you still lost. Good teams find ways to win, and they lost 5 straight series. They haven't won a series since April 13th against Ole Miss, actually. So, and don't give me, but see, if they were a good team, they would have found a way to win some of these games at home. They lost a series to Auburn. They got run rolled in one game. They got demolished by Kentucky. They scored 3 runs in 2 games against Kentucky, who went 29-24. They played that game in Knoxville. Ooh. So should Tennessee be a host? I don't think that Tennessee should be a host, but they are, because they're in the SEC. And guess what? If the regions go chalk, we'll get Tennessee and Arkansas, another SEC all-super regional.
All right. Well, I got one more final argument to make for Troy. Robert says Troy should have been over OSU, Miami, and Coastal should have been 6, 7, or 8. So we've gone over the Coastal thing, and we all definitely agree that they should have been up that high. With the Troy thing, here's my thing. This is a problem with the committee more than anything else. So we have rankings, as Destiny said, rankings mean next to nothing, right? The committee seems to not value that. They're going to value RPI, although, again, Troy had a better RPI than Arizona State, who makes it in over them. But my thing is, I wish that there was some kind of notification that would have been better to kind of know ahead of time, right? Like, this Troy team started in the top 25 and remained there all the way to the last weekend of the series in D1 baseball's top 25. At no point in time are they dropping because they aren't sweeping series. They're really literally staying the exact same every single week. So it's like the committee should work with the ranking teams, something to give somebody an idea of like, hey, it's not enough. You're going to have to do better. Not they weren't trying to sweep and win the series in sweeps anyways. Okay, I'm not saying that, but there's no notification that like, hey, you need to do a little bit more, right? It's just you got to set a little bit of a precedent, and the precedent doesn't come out until afterward, and then you still aren't sure what it is, because how the hell do you explain Arizona State in over Troy? And that's just one team. I just used the one that said last in and first out. So I took Troy versus Arizona State and said, okay, we'll make it make sense. Where's the clearly defined okay, this is what they leaned on. And there's nothing that is a big enough disparity for me to say Arizona State should have made it in over Troy. So
look at I'm going to bring back up Kentucky. They're in the SEC. I understand. They went 29-24 on the season. They're going to get in over a 39-win Troy team who's been in the conversation for the top 25 all season long. And somebody said one of the last shows this week, rankings don't matter, only RPI does. Rankings are based on RPI. Like that's one of the things that the voters are looking at. That's the entire point of rankings, is to take all of the different data points, all of the different, going on Walter Nolan, going on and looking at the RPI, going and, taking everything into account, head-to-heads, road records, wins over quad, whatever teams. And then you make a ranking. And they were in the conversation all year long. They hit a buzzsaw named Southern Miss. That's it. That's the only team that had their number this year. And did they beat them 4 times? Yes. Does that hurt? Yes. Does it mean that they don't get in over Kentucky and Arizona State? Absolutely not. I don't care that this is a mid-major conference. They were in the conversation all year long, and Troy is a great baseball team. Their season should not be over right now.
Nope. But Tennessee can lose to good teams, not hurt them. Florida can lose to good teams and not hurt them. The one thing I hate about the NCAA baseball selection is that you have, all these different ranking sites, 6 or 7 of them, but the NCAA does not have a ranking. The only thing that they produce is the field of 64. You have no idea if they would have done like what football does, and in the last 4 or 5 weeks they have a committee playoff ranking. Great, good, go for it. Because by then, baseball, you kind of know who would be a top 16 contender, top 25 contender. And that's why you can't really look at the rankings and then be like, oh, Coastal is ranked, whatever, that's what seed they're going to get. Or Troy's ranked, they're going to make it in. Because the people that do the rankings don't make the field of 64. It's a complete different group of people. These people, we have no idea what their mindset or rhyme or reason is the entire season until after the conference tournaments are played. Fun fact: Florida Gulf Coast. Let's talk about getting screwed real quick. Florida Gulf Coast was winning in their game against Stetson, and it got canned.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Got canned due to rain. They were winning, and I think they had to. I think if they won, they would have forced a game 7, quote unquote, or like a winner take all, and it got canned. And Stetson got the auto bid. So hear me out. So yeah, Florida Gulf Coast kind of got screwed there. But what I kind of hate too is that you play a 15 week long season. And let's say you dominate the conference in some of these smaller conferences. Let's say you go like the Southland. Let's say you go 22-8. You're the number 1 overall, but you kind of have a bad weekend in your conference tournament, and you lose to some 8 seed like North Dakota State, for instance, who's 17-31, something like that. So I kind of hate how much is weighed into the conference tournaments in baseball, because in baseball anyone can be anybody. Anyone can get hot for one weekend, but you just disvalued what all these teams have produced for the first 14, 15 weeks of the year and put everything into a weekend tournament that some are single elimination. So I think there needs to be a better format, per se, of to get those teams in that produced all 14, 15 weeks, but then, just didn't win their conference tournament. I think there should be something like in basketball, where if you win your regular season, you make the NIT. I'm not saying that it needs to be a baseball NIT. I'm saying there needs to be something for those teams to still get in, unless there's a tie for, but
we do have to say that is no longer how the NIT works in basketball, right, TJ? They did go away from that. It's now, once again, just like everything else, it's more about money and lining the pockets to make the tournament with more teams that have bigger followings and bigger fan bases that are going to bring in more money. So it doesn't reward those teams like that anymore, unfortunately. No. But it was good when they had it, and I do agree with you in that regard, especially for those smaller conferences where that is such a meaningful thing. Because Stetson was the number 1 team in the regular season, so that's why they get the nod, right?
I'm not
So
mad at that, but
right, I'm not
way
mad at that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have a conference tournament and the rules are if you win it, you should go, then also it sucks for Florida Gulf Coast if they were literally winning the game when it was canned. So yeah, I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know.
Florida Gulf Coast was deemed the winner. They were deemed the winner of that game due to rain, but the following winner take all game got canceled.
Gotcha.
That makes it even worse.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, Hayden, you bringing up the different format to be able to see like what these teams need to do in order to get into the tournament, what the committee's looking for. I'm a little more radical on that subject. I think it needs to be an equation. It needs to be stats. There needs to be something like if we want to take RPI for example and use it, top 64 teams use that. I am so tired. Like I understand that I'm in the minority for this, but I'm a little tired of the search committee who is full of athletic directors who are pulling for their own teams and other officials that didn't play a single bit of baseball this season and just watched the games casually towards the end to try and figure out, based on what they heard. And I am of the opinion that there needs to be an equation. You take what you want, how much you want each thing to impact. You want strength of schedule to be more than the overall record. Do you want it, just make a big equation, put it on a spreadsheet, and you get to track in real time where you are. So you get your 32 auto bids, and then the next 32 on that list, put them in. That's what I think it should be. I'm tired of committees. I'm tired of committees because they do things like this.
Well, what I'm tired of too is 13 wins is the magic number in the SEC. So you go 13-17. So you have a losing record by 4 games, and you are considered a virtual lock to make the NCAA tournament. But then you look but I heard an argument today. Oh, if you think your team is notable of winning the national championship, then you shouldn't be upset with your draw. Okay, well, clearly a team that has a losing record in their own conference isn't really notable of winning the national championship because they can't beat the only teams in their conference. So I think there needs to be a line drawn of I think bare minimum if you're in the SEC, ACC, Big 12, 500 in your conference. And that's kind of 500 will be like tiptoeing. So I think that needs to be, put into play because you have, and I mean, Florida kind of played devil advocate here because they were 1-11, and at one point there were talks of being a regional host. I get it. I'm not saying the SEC is a bad conference. Obviously, on paper and everything, SEC is the best conference in baseball.
Cream of the crop.
But if you're 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th in the pack, you're not winning games. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And honestly, in this, I've done a lot of crazy trips. Obviously, you guys have followed me on Twitter for a very long time. And this SEC bias of how good they are and everything, and how they are rewarding of being the number one team in the country, number one conference in the country, getting all these host sites. What, half the host sites are from the SEC. So I think what I'm going to do next season is that I'm going to take all of my spare time and money and I'm going to go visit every single SEC ballpark and try to watch at least a game or two at every single one next year just to truly see, if it means more and when just what I'm missing. To be a better fan, I'm going to go put myself, spend thousands of dollars just to go see if it's what they all say it is.
I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not going to give them a piece of my money, man. Oh man. All right, guys. I think we let it all out, man. I feel better. I don't know about you guys, but I feel a little bit better. It doesn't fix anything, unfortunately, but it might make us feel a little bit better letting it out and venting with the fine people of the Sun Belt Conference.
At some point over the course of the night, it went from me trying to be unbiased and me trying to be, professional to I was just saying things. So yeah, it's definitely nice to get that out. But Coastal Carolina did get screwed, and Southern Miss. Congratulations, you guys. I'm going to be watching that regional.
Shout out the AD of Coastal. Chance Miller blasting the NCAA on Twitter. That's how you know if an AD is coming for you. And you know, like I said, you know, Miller at Coastal, man of the people. This dude during football season, he is out visiting all the other, like all these tailgates, all these Coastal fans. He's getting all this personal interaction. Him and the president, who is going to West Virginia, you know, in the summertime. But still, I don't see too many universities where the AD and the president are going to people's tailgates. They're sitting in the stands. They have all these interactions with fans. You don't see that at most schools. You see them in the, you know, the president's box and everything. So
Yep.
I will say I like to see an AD stand up for his university, and that's, you know, that's what makes me buy in the Coastal, is because they don't lay down.
Yeah.
So I like it, you know.
And he deserves an explanation.
Yeah, I'll shout him out too, because he came right by us, Hayden, when I was at the game, and I walked right up to him. He had no idea who I was. Shook his hand, told him we were, you know, Sunbelt Syndicate, what we're trying to accomplish here, and man, he said, email me, because we wanted to get a guy on, right? We wanted to get an interview with a player, and we had yet to really make an in with Coastal yet, because they had a lot of changes. And I'll tell you what, I emailed
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. We already went on a tangent about the regional. Don't get me started on that.
Well, we got an in. We got what we wanted. But, you know, I'm sure putting a face with a name and realizing that we traveled down to make it there. And, you know, we're not just some fly-by-night operation here. We're trying to get this done very nicely, presentation-wise, professionally. So, you know, shout out to him, because and then he started talking to me all about Coastal and what they're trying to accomplish. So it was cool. I appreciate those types of interactions. Like you said, Hayden, those are few and far between at any other school. So it's absolutely phenomenal to see him walking around. And I'll tell you what, I had to wait a minute or two because he kept shaking hands and talking to everybody else. So you're not lying when you say he walks around, he talks to people, gets to know them. He was even, not everybody he was saying hi to, he even had a big conversation with, but he's saying people's names. I mean, just, that's pretty cool to see that type of interaction. So anything else before? Yeah.
He has called me, you know, numerous times just about other incidents and stuff like that, where I'm like, man, you know, the AD of a university is calling me, you know, at 11 o'clock at night to discuss some things. I'm like, you don't see that you know, anywhere, you know. And, you know, speaking of these recent changes at Coastal and, you know, in the media department, you know, a part of me wants to apply for a media credential because I love having access to all of that stuff. And I've been approved every single where I've been, except for, you know, Coastal baseball this year. But that's beside the point. You know, first year I got declined access to media credentials here, which is odd because I've been approved by the NCAA every single bowl game and every university that Coastal has played in any sport. But that's another hour-long tangent for another day. But I'm not gonna. I don't even want to apply for media credential because I want to be a fan and I want to be belligerent and I want you to see videos worse than Banana Man of me over that Florida Gator bullpen.
Well, you have somebody record it. We'll go viral again.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. If you mic me up, and matter of fact, speaking of being mic'd up, we hosted a regional a couple years back where we played UNC Wilmington, and obviously UNC Wilmington and Coastal don't like each other. They put a microphone in the outfield underneath, directly where I was standing. Now I had no idea there was a microphone directly underneath where I was standing, and I was saying some very outlandish stuff. Everything was clean, you know, no heavy curse words, but a lot of the stuff I was said should have never made the airways of TV. And with the microphone being directly beneath me,
It did.
many people approached me and they said, "Hey, just so you know, we can hear what you're saying loud and clear on TV, and you should probably A, not do that, or B, step away from the microphone." And I'm like, well, the NCAA probably should have thought twice about putting a microphone in the outfield at Coastal, but that's not my place to be. You know, be my guest and put a microphone in the outfield. I thought it was very ballsy to put microphones in the outfield for the Clemson game. That was bold. That was very bold of ESPN Plus. You know, and we do try to keep it clean. However, like I tell a lot of our security guards, because Coastal cops and everything, they try to freaking just contain everything so much. They want to be a golf mass match essentially. And that's why you have all these signs about, being hospitable and being nice and being all fuzzy, warmy, fluffy rainbows and everything. But you go to all these other ballparks, you go to the SEC, ACC, even the CAA. I mean, you hear some pretty vulgar and some outlandish stuff.
Yep.
So I kind of hate how much these coastal cops have tried to enforce everything. But then you have Chance Miller, man of the people, saying no, that's what we want. We want it to be a rowdy environment. So he's been doing very well of trying to stop the coastal cops from stopping all the heckling and everyone yelling, because it should be a loud and dangerous environment. I mean, if it's not loud and there's not water bottles flying around in the outfield for this regional, I don't want it. Like, you look at Ole Miss. Every time Ole Miss hits a home run, beer goes flying. I'll be considerate. I'll throw water. I'm not going to waste beer, and I'm not going to make everybody sick. But I even warned people when we played Duke in a regional. I said, "Hey, look," I said, "if we hit a homer right here, this water's going flying." At least I warned the people. But
Oh man.
just a note to the NCAA: don't put a microphone in right field, and don't put one above the third base dugout.
Wouldn't do it.
It's not going to be a good
There you go.
idea. My loud voice shouldn't be on TV, especially in any game that Florida is in. It just won't be a good look.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have to agree. Got to just make sure, because you never know what you will catch on a hot mic. Speaking of hot mics, is there any last thoughts from you, TJ, before we get out of here tonight?
No, excited for the regionals, even though it's not exactly what Coastal deserved. But it is a good regional. It's a lot of great teams there. And, like Hayden said, bring the noise, because we saw what happened in 2023. Bring the noise. We saw what happened with Clemson earlier this year. Bring it. Like I've never seen a more hostile environment than Springsbrook Stadium, the way everybody's on top of each other like that at the college level. I bring the noise. I'm ready for it. And Hattiesburg, I already know that they're going to do that. So I don't even have to warn them.
I'll put one last note on Troy here too. Let's have Coastal and Southern Miss keep going in this tournament to show just how damn good this conference was, and say, how the hell did you leave Troy out of this? Okay? When it's all said and done, the smoke clears. Say, hey, you did a disservice and you made a big mistake, because this was another team in this conference that should have been in this field.
I might get in trouble. I might get in trouble with
Thank you, Hayden, for joining us
tonight.
There you go. Hey, bring it on. We ain't scared of you, Kentucky Wildcats. Bring it on. All right. Sunbelt to the top. I'll throw a little Southern Miss one in there too. And we will see you guys before regionals. We'll have some previews for you.